I was going to sing.
He's serenading
You
us.
ruined my fun.
An introduction.
I'm just letting you know so you don't come back later.
Is this gonna be a skit for next meeting? We'll
Yeah.
get going.
Run. I'm not, you know what the bad thing is? It's going to be like that bad song you hear
Oh.
first in the morning and you can't get it out of your head.
It's John.
2 more minutes. 2 more minutes.
Lauren's got goodies in her drawer.
Mhm.
She has to keep track of her sugar,
Who
Oh,
does?
Lauren.
Oh,
Oh.
yes, yes, yes.
So that's why if you see her eating,
Oh.
it's not being disrespectful. She has to.
That's good.
129. 129. Here's Irene.
Thank you. Yes, thank you.
Okay, you guys ready? Okay, I would like to call to order this, hang on a minute, I'll get it right here, this strategic planning workshop through the County Commissioner's Office special meeting or workshop. And for March 16th, 2021, we do have a quorum present at the Commissioners' chambers. Also at this time, I will entertain a motion to suspend Robert's rules.
I'd so move.
A motion by Commissioner Lloyd to suspend Robert rules. Is there a second?
I would second.
Second by Commissioner Toman. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. With that, I'll turn the floor over to Commissioner Lloyd for this strategic planning workshop. And first of all, welcome everybody for being here and glad they could join us this afternoon. Commissioner Lloyd?
Thank you. First of all, I want to thank everyone and I want to thank the commission because it's the first time we haven't made you guys wait for a few minutes before we've started. So we had better planning before this meeting. So it shows the process is working a little better, but want to thank everyone to come here today. I didn't get my typical agenda out, but we're going to just take a look at some of the committees, where we're at, where we're going. And then I really want to start talking about focusing on next steps. I think a couple notes in talking to folks as we've gone through this process. I think we're already seeing some positive benefits from these discussions. I've heard from department heads with their regular meetings, feeling really comfortable in some of the directions we're going. And also with the elected officials with their monthly meetings, just a feeling of greater communication. And when we started this process, and one of the first things we did, so I had folks turn in, strengths, weaknesses, areas to improve. And it doesn't matter where I've been, job, wherever, when you do those kind of surveys, communication is always one of the number one things hit. So I do feel if nothing else has been accomplished at this point, that we are seeing some increased communication between folks, which have led to some really good partnerships that may not have happened. I heard the other day when I met with Donna Lee about a folding machine. And by the way, I didn't even know there was paper folding machines. So it was cool. Like I even got educated about a paper folding machine and how Cindy had it in her office and it just kind of collected dust. It wasn't a paper folder. It was really might've been more of a dust collector. It got used every once in a while, but not much. But Donna Lee's office, with the change, if I'm not mistaken, in some of the jury packets, this has been really a significant thing. And I think it just shows when we can sit in a room and just talk and come up with ideas and talk about what's going well and not going well, we see improvement. And I go back to another example at the beginning of this, during the beginning of COVID, where Sheriff Grossnickel put the command unit up at the hospital to be able to help with some of the testing. I mean, these are just a couple of the examples that have been able to come from these things. And so I have to say, as we go through this process, number one, I thank all of you for being willing to be part of this process. And number two, really taking advantage of this to improve things. We've also seen Gene's the concept of creating some capital project lists and some priority lists. These are huge movements that we've not had in the county. And I just want to, this all comes back and as a thank you to you guys. So I want to just start with some positivity, and we'll just move into some of the committee reports. And the first one would just be our liaison committee. And we really haven't met and haven't had to meet because we've made a presentation to the commission of how we could look at liaisons, and we can use that information in the past. We've done a couple new things with liaisons this year, and we'll continue to evaluate that process. The next one I'll walk over to is Cindy, and Cindy will come to the podium because she's in the room. Welcome, Cindy.
Welcome.
Thank you. I just can't change it back and forth, so you just have to look at the back of my head. I am on the mission statement committee, and I did send this out to the elected officials. I was asked if we could send it out to some different people. I have not had any other feedback from that, but we can open it up to the, I don't know how you want to proceed with it, if we're going to open it up to other individuals that are on the,
Yep.
or where we're going to go from here. I'm sure you'll let us know our next steps.
And my intention, Cindy, just so you know, is once we kind of have a couple final a product that's come that looks good to go, and even if there's a couple variations of it, we can take it to the commission
Okay.
and have us look at it as a whole.
Okay, so that's where we stand. It's still, our mission is to serve the residents of Sweetwater County by providing quality, transparent, and cost-effective government services to meet the needs of those in our communities. We changed the suggestion you had.
Yep. And Commissioner Tolman did provide some
Yes.
feedback, which does reflect in those changes,
Yes.
correct?
That is correct.
And in fact, as we're talking, I'm reading what and it's the match. So I guess, Cindy, if you'll resend that out to everyone on this
Okay.
email to see if there's any more. If not, we will look at taking it to the commission and going from there. So,
Okay, thank you.
awesome.
I just,
Oh.
needs of the county, and you say needs of the community?
Yep. And the community would be great too. Thank you, Mary.
It says communities, I'm sorry, what?
I had needs of the county.
Oh, okay, so do we need to change?
But-
I
but
don't
you
remember
can
which one was
consider
what
both,
now.
Right.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Sounds good. And I just want to let everyone know why I'm really big on the mission statement. And I think there's a book, can't remember who wrote it, but it's one of my favorite books in business. It's called Mission-Based Marketing. And it really talks about when we do things, if you're doing it as a mission, it makes and gives you a guidepost of where you're going. And I really like a mission statement where people can remember. And when you've got, a lot of organizations have these mission statements that are 2 paragraphs long. And unless you have a lot of extra time on your hands, you're never really going to embrace that. And I think really getting to a smaller, more meaningful mission statement kind of gives us all something to wrap our heads upon as we're making decisions. Hey, does you do this? As a Rotarian, we had the 4-way test, and it was just a simple way of looking at things. And I think getting to a more quantified and simplified mission statement helps lead us in decision making. So does anyone have any questions for Cindy? All right, next I'll go to Donna Lee Boback, the winner of the folding machine. I saw Donna Lee up there at one time.
Okay, here I am.
Hi, Donna Lee.
How are you?
I'm good.
Well, I really appreciated Cindy offering the folding machine for us because we have sat and folded jury summonses and everything for many years, and it was really has saved us man hours and stuff. The elected officials that we're meeting once a month, the first Thursday of the month, And our last meeting, we talked quite a bit about legislation that is before our representatives and our delegation. And having some concern with the responses from our delegation. Some are hearing back from their senators and some are not. And we're trying to appease that situation so they are listening to their constituents. We were all very pleased with Rob's presentation to you on, the budget and where we were looking at. And we all applauded him. We thought it was very well received by the commission and everyone else. I have spoken, we are quote unquote limited public access. And one of the services that we have provided here has been passports. And for this part of the county, we were the only place that was offering that service. Rock Springs Post Office does offer it. However, I just didn't want to see that service leave our office. And I had heard that Natrona County Library was processing them now. And I spoke with Jason, and he is willing to take that on. And I'm so excited. I'm pleased for Sweetwater County that we still have that over on this side of the county. But it also will keep, the monies that we were collecting for the county, they will collect it. And it'll also offer better hours for people. Like, they're open on Saturdays. We're not, kids aren't in school, and more convenience for the residents of Sweetwater County. So I was really, really stoked about that he was willing to take that on. Dave talked about his agricultural projects, along with setting his values and processing the personal property. Sheriff Grossnickel, he talked about some training that he had last year with the hospital. The rest of us don't remember having that invitation, and I have yet to visit with Gary about that to see if we can't have that training as well, because John thought it was very, very good for him and his staff. Danny wasn't able to make it. We were in a jury trial, and Dale wasn't available as well. I don't know if you guys have any questions of us, but we are communicating very well. It's exciting to see what's going on in each other's offices, and it's been a good growing for us.
Does anyone have questions for Donnelly?
Where did you say the passports are going to be issued from?
Jason is going to have his staff trained at the library. He said he would probably start at the White Mountain Library, but then he would train over here in the Green River, the county library.
Okay, thank you.
So that offers that throughout the whole county.
Any other questions for Donnelly? All right, with that, I'm going to move over to Gene Lagersky.
We haven't met for about a month, but I just want to encourage everybody to get in their capital request forms to us by the end of this week, so we can keep rolling on that process with the committee. That's all I got.
Okay, and I think that's an integral process as we continue forward in kind of coming up with a plan. And I think whether we're in a budget shortfall or a budget windfall, having a plan and really being able to classify and strategize which projects are the most key and important is an essential to the process in budgeting and just moving forward governmentally. So does anyone else have any questions for Gene or questions about the process with the capital forms?
Donnelly has her hand up.
Oh, Donnelly, sorry.
No, that's
I
fine.
wasn't looking up there, but Doc and Mary were like, Roy, pay attention.
I just, Gene, I know I spoke a little bit with Tim about computers, and that's one thing, we're all going to have to look at down the road. However, it hasn't been determined whether that will be something that Tim budgets for, or if we're going to have to budget ourselves. And the more you visit about that, that would be great for us to know.
I guess Tim, Doc, I guess this question go to Tim, Tim or Doc. How have we done that in the past? Has Tim done those upgrades, or has the departments done those? How's that worked?
All right, I can speak to that.
All right, Tim, I think you're a much better resource than Doc. Thank you.
All right, so typically what has happened is that I've give recommendations to departments on what computers they should buy each year. That keeps those items in their budgets, but I'm willing to do it whatever way you feel is the best. I think it's been a little scattered, and there are some elected officials who've gotten grant money who've decided that they can, now's a great time to buy computers because they fit within a grant or something. And so it's really hard to put together a specific plan, but keeping it in the departments has been working, but usually I'll recommend what they need.
Okay. And I guess, and Tim, and you know, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I can't remember because there's a lot of conversations that occur, but have we talked about the possibility, and I know right now it's difficult because a lot of that COVID money was able to go to computers and laptops and such because it fit those parameters. But have we ever looked at going on like a replacement schedule by department so it was more routine and it wasn't like 8 new computers in a year, and it was more, you know, a couple a year or however? How is that? Or, you know, kind of like in a routine concept like that, Tim?
Sure. You know, we have, I've made an attempt to do that. And then, like I say, what will happen is someone will get some grant money to replace all their computers, and it'll throw that whole out of whack, or the sheriff will take out a loan to borrow a ton of computers and money to get them. And it kind of throws that schedule out of whack. So,
Okay.
yeah, I think if we agree on how to do it, it's fine. But, and we are missing some because we don't have a good plan. I've kind of tried to put together a plan this year. I'm looking at it right now. I don't have it together yet to see if it makes some sense to do that. So I'll bring something forward
Okay.
and we can look at it.
I appreciate that. And I guess it's kind of a good problem to have, knowing we're able to get some of the grant money to replace some of those and not have to just do it out of general every year. So I guess there is some positive to that, except from a planning perspective. So, all right. Anyone have any other questions for on computers or what Gene went over with the capital projects? Okay.
Hey, Roy.
Here.
Hey,
Yes.
Roy. This
Yes.
is Gary. I was just going to add to and I don't think Tim touched on this, but one of the opportunities for cost savings that you know, we started, especially in the VSO this year, was just going to laptops, period, with the docking stations. The laptops have plenty of power, and with the docking stations, you can still connect them up to multiple screens and things like that. That's worked really well. So what that did is where they were using laptops to travel to do outreach in, you know, Big Piney and surrounding areas, and, you know, from Rock Springs, Greener. Now they're just using the laptop, plug it into their docking station. They've gotten rid of the desktops that they've been cycled out. So instead of having 2 machines, they have 1. And I've done the same in my area. And as those old ones come out, that's what we'll do. So, you know, historically there was a lot of, you know, desktops on the desktops, and then also buying laptops to be able to travel and to do other things. The laptops seem like they offer enough just to be able to go, for the most part, with just laptops and the small docking stations.
I appreciate that. I think that's a great example of just some great cost savings and being innovative and just being practical. So I do appreciate that. So any other comments in this area for capital with Gene, or computers with Tim? Okay.
Can I
next
ask a
thing-
question?
oh,
Are we supposed to be submitting those to Eugene, those capital request forms?
Yes.
Okay.
And Gene, you remind me, you have a committee that will be going through that, correct?
Yeah, I believe you're on the committee.
I am on the committee, so just making sure I remember all my duties. Sometimes I get a little bit muddled here, but yeah, so no, yep, I am on that committee. So, yep. So I guess any other, does anyone else have any questions for Gene about that process in general with the capital projects?
I would have something to add.
Okay, Mary's got something to add.
The joint meeting with the cities, when Marty Jernovich and all of us were working on purchasing options, I know like Wamsutter and Granger, they were really excited because when we talked about purchasing computers, they paid double what Marty was able to get them for by being able to have the option of tagging on to the state. I'm not sure what the process is called, but you can tag on to that low bid through the state.
Okay. And I think that's when we go back to it, a lot of these problem solves are simply by just opening up dialogue amongst each other. And we've seen that with the intergovernmental group. And when you start moving in different directions, there's going to be some resistance. I was joking today that earlier about I was one of the co-chairs of the Animal Control Unification Group. And man, there's not a want to do unification of animal control. And that was very, very clear, and that's okay. But at least we had that discussion. But one of the things that came out of that discussion was the Green River was getting science feed diet at 35 cents a pound for food, which was significantly cheaper than what Rock Springs was getting. So they were actually going to work together to hook them up with the same deal. And these are the things that are small incremental savings, but it's ways that we create efficiencies and better use of our funds, but also working together to find options. And, because sometimes I always joke about what I call sacred cows. And a sacred cow to me is something you do in a business or an entity that even though you probably shouldn't do it that way, you do it. And when you ask someone, why do we do it this way? And the typical answer is, we always have. And it's okay to look and take a few cows out to pasture and to look and make some change and go in different directions as needed. So any other questions about Gene's process or computers? Okay, next thing I want to talk about is something it's just always kind of the elephant in the room, and that is budget. And I know some of us have talked to some of you guys about budget. The others will be getting reached out to here in the next few weeks, I'm sure. And I know we just kind of continue to go through with budget, and I know this isn't always the most efficient time to talk about it, but I do know as we look into our planning, that was a lot of questions people have, is the budget. So I guess, is there any questions we can answer from a general standpoint for budget or anything to help that way? And I would encourage anyone that didn't see Rob's presentation a couple weeks at our last meeting when he did the slideshow, to go back to that meeting and look at that slideshow, or even reach out to Rob and ask for a copy of that slideshow. I think for anyone that didn't see it, it's a great beneficial tool of where we're at, where we're going, where we need to go. And I think it's some of the best information you can see about the budget situation and process. So, but is there any generic questions or anything there about the budget anyone needs at this point? All right, with that, moving on, just want to touch bases. Donnelly said that, mentioned the group was talking about legislation, and next year I'd like to see us, as we continue to move forward in our planning, is to be able to have some time with our legislatures in November, December before they go. I know a lot of us, will follow bills, recommend bills, but I'd like us to be proactive enough to be able to talk to our legislators before they even go, to start talking about legislation that we think could be beneficial for the county or our areas, and being proactive and actually getting to the point where we're helping generate ideas to for our local legislators to go sponsor some bills and do some proactive things for us in the county. So just kind of a coming attraction thought. And then I hit Rob. So any questions on anything we've talked about so far? All right, with that, we'll go to the next part and kind of start to wrap up with a bigger topic. And that's where do we go now? And I think this is where we have to start really sitting down and making a look at really coming down to where we want to go as a county and the directions we want to go in our specific areas, and really for us as commissioners to start saying this is where some of the areas we think are strong and we need to go. And I think some of that will become a little more defined in the budget process. But with that being said, I've continued to work with the University of Wyoming. I'm thinking we're making some progress on on some reach out to the community for like a poll, a survey, so we can get their input, because I think that's a huge part of this piece is with some of us being, with being elected officials, and making sure it's not just our view of what's important, but what the constituents' views are important for services and what we're providing. And I need to give credit where credit's due. Actually, Gary gave that idea at the beginning of the process, and I really have appreciated that thought and that communication from him. And I want to make sure I give credit where credit's due. But I think, I did ask last time for some volunteers, and I did get one. And I'd like to see if and you can just email me, send me a call, whatever. To really start, I think we've moved forward strong, I think in a strong manner with Gene and the capital projects with the system he set up. But I think we need to start identifying what I call those philosophical or functional points that we really need to start looking at and addressing, and in the order we do that. And that could be as simple as Eric and I have talked about, the trail system, and we've talked about economic development. We've talked public-private partnership concepts. We've also, but in other, conversations with different people, we've talked about the needs for maybe, taking a look at we'll go to redundancies in a minute, but what are some of the redundancies and the things we can look at a little bit differently? But what are those things that we need to be doing systematically as a county that we're not, or that we need to look at the process and do different? I have had one volunteer reach out to me, and I will be putting that individual on that committee, but I really need 4 or 5 other people that would be willing to meet as a group. I would be more than willing to be part of that group, to really start talking about what are those systematic changes we need to look at, whether we make changes or not. What are those sacred cows, and where do we start moving forward in those areas? And what's the importance of those things changing? What are the biggest priorities, and really setting those out. And, and as we look at the future, I think you have to look at, economics and financially budgeting a balance and coming up with concepts. I think you have to look at economic diversity as concepts, but what are those priority areas, and how do we get there, and how do we start working toward those? And so I want everyone to think a little bit about, do they have time to give maybe once or twice a month, 30 to 45 minutes to really start talking about these ideas? We could do Zoom calls, and really, and it would be really nice to have someone that's on at least an elected official and a department head that's part of that, and if anyone else, the more the minds, the merrier by far, and really start breaking down what we've gotten from these smaller group meetings and saying, how do we look at this at a bigger scale? And where do we start going, and starting to set some priorities so we can make a recommendation to the commissioners? Hey, these are the 10 most important things we think structurally or philosophically or systematically we need to look at as a county. And here's the order we think we should attack that, and then really start coming up with plans to attack and make movement. And I think we've shown as a group, and really what's been an informal process in our strategic planning, we have moved some mountains. We have made some things better. We have made some progress. Commissioner Tolman said a couple of weeks ago at a meeting that someone from the community had told her, this is one of the most progressive and forward-thinking commissions they've seen. But I don't think that ends there. It also ends at the department heads and the employees that are willing to move that direction and look in different eyes and views, because it's easy to do the same thing forever. It's sometimes to get to the better spot, change is hard. But to become better, sometimes you have to change, and you got to be willing to move forward. So if you would like to spend some time with me, I'd like to get that committee going in the next week or two so we can actually start talking about this in the meeting and start presenting some of those ideas and those concepts so we can really start pushing forward with moving some more plans and directions of how we change some of those things we think we've identified. And if people want to share, even if they don't want to be part of the group and they want to look back at some of the worksheets they've sent and said, hey, Roy, I really think employee training is a huge issue, and that's just something, or communication, bring it to us so we can start talking about it, and not just talking, coming up with plans and prioritizing to create plans to move forward in those areas. So any comments there? I guess anybody willing to help out that hasn't already volunteered in that concept? If anyone's ready to, Cindy Lane raised her hand. And if you just say it out loud, because I have a hard time following the video screen. I guess I think I'm a multitasker until I try to have a meeting with two different planes. So if anyone else is willing, just let me know. All right, anything on that?
I would just say, is there a possibility of putting a suggestion box somewhere on the wall for employees and visitors to add, give us suggestions, anonymous suggestions, or non-anonymous?
Yeah, I'm not opposed. Have we ever done that historically? Does anyone that's been here for a while know of any attempts made or any concepts of that being tried and what they've seen? I see one head shake that would look like it was a yes, possibly. Anyone else? What was, so
We had
go
one.
ahead, Eric.
Sorry, I couldn't hit I have to unmic or unmute two microphones. Anyway, we had one in the land use department for a while, and some of the stuff that would come in on the suggestions weren't we're not PG rated. So they
Use it to write a book, Eric.
yeah, I mean I don't know. There might be other ways of doing it, technologically speaking, that might work better, but we got rid of it after a while. It just wasn't effective.
Okay.
The reason I brought it up was because as I was going around talking to all the department heads, I was told you need to visit more with the employees and find out what their ideas are. And I was just trying to think of a way we could do that.
Well, yeah, and you know what? And maybe there is a way we can look at it two ways: employees and constituent based. And
Right.
and someone mentioned technologically base it. I mean, we live in a world that
Yeah.
rather than someone writing something down, because I could write a suggestion, but you probably won't read and understand what that suggestion meant with my handwriting. But I could type something and you would understand that. So maybe that's something we can definitely look at, and we go there. And and Mary, you just hit something out loud, was how do we get the feedback from the employees? And maybe one of the concepts is we do one of these workshops and we say, hey, we're going to just it will just be a couple of the folks from the committee on there, but this is an employee day, and on this day we come and share ideas and provide an open forum for there. And I know there's always good and bad to anything, but I think providing I've said since day one, I think our strength in this in our county is our employees at all levels. And I have found that I've become more educated, not just from talking to someone that's been here for 34 years and who has provided me a ton of education, I'm not going to lie, but I've had just as much valuable information shared to me from just a casual conversation in the clerk's office or walking through the assessor's office. So I think finding a way to elicit ideas, especially specific to this process and in general from employees, is important. I would agree.
Commissioner Lloyd, I think.
Yeah, Tim.
I think we have a public comments email that the public can send suggestions to.
Okay.
I would suggest, rather than just a generic box, that if you have maybe some idea to put a survey out to solicit ideas, I think people are more willing to go when they believe that those are going to be responded to. Suggestion boxes sound like a good idea, but I've rarely seen any of those be successful. But surveys, especially focused ones, can be pretty effective.
Okay. I agree. And maybe, and I'll make my recontact back to the University of Wyoming and see where we're at with this process. And maybe there's a way we can create a small survey without using the University of Wyoming as a start, just to start being able to reach out to folks. Because I think, we talked about communication being an issue, and sometimes when people don't feel like they're communicated to, it's hard for them to communicate back. So maybe the survey, I think the survey concept is great, Tim, because when you do a suggestion box, it's just someone asking for a generic idea. And a lot of times you're going to get someone when they're mad, that's when they want to write a comment. Whereas if we can do it in a survey form, we can get information from people at a normal time and be able to have more directed information. So I definitely will start gearing toward that. So
I don't want to commit anyone, but Kayla, with her business council experience, might be able to help us.
okay, I can reach out to Kayla on that too.
Yeah.
And if anyone would like to help me with that, once again, email me, call me. I went on the pulpit today up here, I guess not the pulpit, but the podium, and gave everyone my wrong email address and my whole personal phone number. But I did give my email address. It was not purposely my wrong one. It was planner Eric Bingham that said, "Hey Roy, I think he just gave you a wrong email address." But
that's okay. I tried to put the conservation district.
but it wasn't intentional. But I do believe, we need to start, finding ways to open that communication and increase the amount of transparency. And because like I said today, the intent isn't not to be transparent. It just sometimes happens within what we do. And that includes our employees. So any other comments in this area? So I'm looking for emails from volunteers specifically to survey process so we can start some little things. And I can work with Tim on that too, as far as an electronical method to get that out, but then also structural and systematic kind of concepts that we need to look at as a priority. And even if you don't want to be on that committee, kick me some of those priorities. How do we get to those pieces? And we can start making a goal of getting to there and really evaluating what's the most important piece. Any questions on that?
She didn't give him the phone number that says the time is.
So, all right, with that being said, does anyone have anything else to add to the, I haven't, this has been a little more core based today, but I did see Irene was out there and some of our component agencies. Saw Linda was out there, and I didn't see, and Jason Grubb also. I guess from your guys' perspective, is there anything we can do to help support or ideas that you guys have? Because to me, you're an integral part of this process also. So I'll just turn it over to you guys.
Commissioner Lloyd, this is Irene. Thank you for offering. I'd like to be on that committee, but I certainly don't want to, step on any of the department heads' toes or anything.
You are now on the committee.
And maybe there's some ways that we could, share expenses. I think Marty does an excellent job, but I think maybe if we could get the two purchasing departments together, maybe we could find some savings or something. But I'd love to help any way we could.
Thank you.
This is Linda. For me, we have great resources with the county, especially with Marty in purchasing. We're always calling her to find out, how can we get a better deal? Can you get it at a better cost ratio than we can? So I do appreciate what we can utilize. It has been very beneficial to us. And of course, and Marty would agree with this, we're always looking for those old vehicles if you have any. But she says there's no old vehicles anymore. But the one
the abandoned lot, maybe the sheriff has something for you.
Well, believe me, we got a truck one time that looked like it had been abandoned from the county. But we utilized it, so it worked. But yes, thank you so much for that. And a shout out to Marty, because she is a tremendous asset to the county.
Amen.
And I would just echo what's been said. We appreciate being part of this process. And I think the library can serve a unique role in just as you want to begin talking to the constituents with facilities all throughout the county. We're a great place for a meeting, focus groups, even delivering surveys. I think we're a really good platform for getting that out. And we're happy to help out with whatever's going on, as far as efficiency goes, but also remembering that we provide a quality of life experience to our community, and we want to maintain that.
I appreciate it, Jason. And I actually had down on my list to talk about eventually looking at some focus groups and having some public forums in the county for a setting. And that library is one of the best settings we can use because you were located throughout the county. And the nice thing about the library, it's a non-intimidating environment. It's kind of a neutral ground and kind of, you don't go to the library thinking about getting into a fight. I think so. I think there's some good stuff to that. So I do appreciate that. So Cindy Lane just gave a look like, well, that's where I used to go after school. But anyway, so anyone have any other things to add or comment or ideas that we need to do moving forward? So I don't cut off anyone going once, twice. All right, with that being said, we will meet the second meeting of April, whatever that date is. Sally, do you know what that date is? April 20th.
Commissioner Lloyd,
Yes, Commissioner Wendling.
as we move into April and May, we need to be somewhat aware of the budgeting schedule.
Ah,
So you might want to check with Bonnie and see what the budgeting schedule is.
okay, I will get with Bonnie and just make sure we will get out to everyone when we are having that meeting. And so we'll go from there. And just with that, if you're willing to help in that systematic structural concept, please let me know. If you have survey ideas, if you'd let me know. And I will start talking with some of the commissioners about maybe opening up at the next meeting, finding the way maybe to do some focus group opportunities and such like that. And the other big piece, like we said, is electronic surveys and getting some employee feedback. So, and if anyone has any ideas of how we can make this process better, because we chose at the beginning to kind of self-run this, please let me know. I mean, I'm excited about the directions we're going, and I'm excited about some of the steps we've taken. But man, whatever we need to do to get to where we need to go, I'm willing to look at. So with that being said, if there's nothing else, Doc, I can turn it back to you.
Yeah, and going back to the future meetings of possibly budget versus this, I much prefer this. It's much more laid back. So, if you can bump the budget meetings, and we'll just do those in the evenings on our own. It's up to you. But no, I don't have anything.
I'll bring the same energy to the budget meeting.
There you go.
There we go.
Very good. So thank you. Nothing going. With that, anything else? I'll call for a motion to adjourn the meeting.
I look to make that motion.
Got a motion? Is there a second?
Second.
Got it. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Meeting adjourned. Thank you, everybody. Be safe, and thanks for your participation.